Welcome to your Daily 5 for Wednesday, May 1st, 2024. Over the years, I have complained often and loudly about my, I don't know what's the right word for it, disgust with the general sense of apathy and self-absorption that most people have. Now, I stand by, I think, all of those episodes. I haven't re-listened to them all, but I don't think I would disagree with anything I had said in the past. But one thing I think I was pretty good about was not specifying that it was only younger people who were like that, because certainly I'm sure many of you who are listening have heard complaints. Oh, millennials, they're all lazy. Oh, Gen Z, they don't care. They're more focused on their screens than they are on anything else, which is just a repetition of the same criticism that older people make towards younger people and always have and probably always will. I remember the same things being said about people my age when I was younger. Although, in fairness, most of the people my age when I was younger didn't care about anything because we were just so angry about everything. So that may have been partially earned, but it's just a generational thing. Now, it doesn't mean I understand everything about younger people. I have also talked many times about stuff that I just do not understand. I just did a 5 about TikTok, which I just don't understand. So it's not that I'm saying that I get it. I don't get what's going on with young people. Older people never really do, or at least it's a very small portion. But I also think I've been pretty good about not just writing younger people off the way. A lot of older people do. And so it was heartening to me to see all these student protests that are going on in the U.S. Now, that sounds terrible to say because it's not like I think it's great that they have to protest, because this is over the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And I'm not getting into the politics of that. That cannot be discussed in 5 minutes, nor with the amount of nuance that most people would hang in for. But I am encouraged to see people that are saying, no, you know what, especially in college. When I was in college, I barely cared about anything outside of myself. And I'm sure most of these kids could just sit back and say, let the older people worry about it. They're in charge anyway. I'm just here to get my education and have a good time and not worry about it. Would be very easy, I'm sure, for most people in college to just ignore what's going on, because depending on how your college experience is, but most people who go away to college or go to a college where they stay on campus, you don't feel like you have any responsibilities. It's sort of almost like a permanent my parents aren't home party for a lot of kids. I had a great time with it. I remember that. And so, like I said, could they sit back and ignore this stuff and just pretend it isn't going on? Sure, it'd be very easy. But instead, they're actually willing to sit on a lawn and risk, and in some cases have been dragged off by the cops. And I don't mean dragged off in a kind, gentle way. I mean dragged off by the cops. And I have to admire that because, again, I have looked around and I've seen a lot of people who wouldn't be willing to do anything short of... Do you remember for a while when activism was considered putting a hashtag on a timeline or changing a profile picture in support of something? Which, don't get me wrong, companies still do that, but a lot of people were doing that, and they were like, yeah, I support whatever cause. I've changed my Twitter handle, or I've changed my Instagram picture to have some kind of image on it that means I stand with whoever. And that was considered taking a stand. Not really. That is the bare minimum, if it is even is a minimum of doing anything. That was always felt like it was a performative action. Like I said, that's why companies still do it. People generally don't do it much anymore. So when you see people who are actually willing to go and risk some level of bodily harm, and don't get me wrong, so far we haven't seen any type of Kent State situation unfold, but you know what? Could happen. Wouldn't shock me. But they're still taking the chance of going to jail, being roughed up by the cops, who I'm sure aren't thrilled that they have to sit there. I'm sure the cops look at them as entitled little babies who are just complaining about something and making them have to drag them off. So it does encourage me. It does make me have at least some degree of optimism, which is a really strange thing to be saying when there's something terrible happening and people are protesting over it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not glad any of this is happening. But I am heartened to see that people actually do seem to care, at least some people, because I know I don't come off as an optimist most of the time. But it does, I have said some form of, this is not something we couldn't change if we were just more empathetic and thought about people besides ourselves occasionally and just did a minimum of effort. I think within most of my complaints, you will find that at the core. And so it's not that I don't think it can ever change. I'm just generally disappointed by people who won't even make a minimal effort to change anything. So when I see younger people, again, who could sit back and just cruise through this or just pretend to ignore it, and they're willing to sit on a lawn and have the cops drag them off, it does end up being an encouraging thing. Not a great situation to begin with, but one that does give me at least some sliver of optimism. And you know what? Most days I don't have that, so I'll take it where I can get it. Later.